What's up, guys? I'm p40 here. Welcome back to Quarantine Content. Just a little entertainment for you while we're all staying inside. I'm your host, Marquez Brownlee, and this is our first look at a new phone, one of the shiniest. As you can tell, this is the Huawei P40 Pro. Now, it's hard to think about Huawei phones without reminding ourselves, no frequent Google Play services updates, no Android updates. So no matter how good this phone is, it's still not likely to be a phone that people like me in this market are going to buy, import, or even recommend to others. But that being said, it is still really cool to see a new high-end phone in 2020. Plus, Huawei showed really cool stuff in the past. So, the lens through which I'm looking at this phone is what stuff from this phone should other manufacturers copy so that those features end up in more hands around the world. That's how I'm looking at this phone. So, okay, first thing to look at with a new phone is the design. And this design is one of my favorite things about it. Now, a lot of it is pretty standard for a high-end flagship right now, and I'm not talking about that. We've all seen the rounded square look and the huge camera bump, which I'll get to in a second, and the metal rails on the side, the speaker at the bottom with no headphone jack. We've all seen that before. But this material, though, it's not even the ceramic back of the Pro Plus. It's got this super soft touch finish on the glass that just feels silky smooth. I don't know if the word satin is in this color name, but it's pretty great. Plus, this lighter gray color doesn't show many fingerprints at all, and it even refracts light pretty softly, so it's not a mirror, and it's easy to record. This is one of my favorite phone back finishes ever. No offense, D-Brand, this is not a phone that should be skinned. This should go naked. People should feel the back, or maybe a clear back case or something like that. But yeah, this I hope gets copied. And then you've got the screen up front. And this one is a mixed bag. So it's a 6.58-inch OLED display, so not too massive, and it's 2640 by 1200 at 90 hertz. Not quite the highest end, but viewing angles and brightness and colors are all high end, and they're nice to look at. But what's much more interesting about this screen is the shape. So this display not only curves over the edges of the left and right side, but it also kind of has the bit of this overflow shape on the top and bottom edges too. So Huawei said their goal with this display shape was to make the whole thing look like it's this overflowing screen, like the surface of water overflowing from the top of a glass with surface tension. And the promo material you've probably seen in this phone has it looking like pretty much all screen, but what we've ended up with is this. And it's a good looking screen, but it mostly just seems like everything's rounded off, and of course the corners don't really get to curve in like that, so you end up with this very unique shape that's not necessarily better. It's like if you imagine trying to wrap a circular gift with wrapping paper and you try to wrap over the entire sphere without creasing anything, like you're gonna end up with some creases in that screen at some point. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but you can see it is still mostly screen, but this isn't something I necessarily copy. Also, you've definitely noticed that huge cutout by now. It's for the selfie camera and a depth sensor and infrared. This is about as small as you can get, actually, a pill-shaped cutout if you want to still have all three of those things. But I think we're finding more and more that the extra depth sensors are not necessarily as useful as we've thought they are. But the infrared in the middle is nice to have for face unlock in low-light environments. When I see this, I think of the iPhone and its massive notch, because of course they have all those Face ID sensors. And I'm hoping maybe finally this year we see a much smaller notch in the new iPhone. They seem pretty committed to Face ID and keeping the infrared and all that stuff at the top, but if we're seeing that Huawei can do this pill-shaped cutout being much smaller than a notch, then hopefully Apple can shrink the notch this year too. Then underneath this display is the new optical fingerprint reader, which they say is 30% larger and 30% faster. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, thank you, sweet. On paper, those improvements are great. I've been saying we should get these fingerprint readers like the whole bottom half of the screen, so it's just easy, you don't even have to think about it. But in practice, actually using this one, I can't even really tell if it's actually bigger. In fact, the animation, which you can see where it lights up, is about the same size as last year, and it's fast, which is great, but really getting that sensor larger is the technical challenge here. Plus, I think this one's actually a little higher up on the phone than I would have wanted. But I will still say, I hope other manufacturers copy continuing to work on fitting bigger sensors in these screens. So then, really probably the biggest focus of this new phone is the camera system on the back. What? I know, it's so subtle. Did you even notice it back there? The P40 Pro has a quad camera system. So 50 megapixel main camera with OIS with an absolutely massive 1/1.2 inch sensor. Then a 40 megapixel ultra wide camera and a 12 megapixel 5x optical periscope camera you can see over there on the side with that recognizable rectangle, all on the back with the time of flight sensor and a mic and the flash as well. Interestingly, if the Galaxy S20 Ultra didn't exist, I think it would be easy to look at this camera and the numbers and think, oh wow, it looks like Huawei is just playing the numbers game with their camera. They're trying to throw as many of the biggest numbers as possible at us to hopefully equal a good camera. But Huawei's angle is actually almost the exact opposite of that. They said, basically, we don't think we need to go all out with the numbers. We're not hitting 100 here, but we do want to strike a balance between high numbers and actually good performance. Okay, please copy that. But of course, you can only copy the approach of the camera as far as getting to actual execution. Now this camera, as far as it translates, it's still early. I've only had this phone for 2 days for my first impressions, but it seems pretty good, usually really good. I've taken a lot of good photos, a lot of sharp photos with this camera. It is binning and spitting out 12 megapixel photos by default. And for the most part, both the standard and the ultra wide are giving me pretty consistent photos, although the ultra wide is still a little bit softer despite its 40 megapixels. But you're also gonna notice from the main camera that huge sensor has some of the same problems as the huge sensor from the S20 Ultra, basically with the plane of focus being so thin that close-up subjects aren't completely in focus and you do start to get some fringing. No autofocus problems though. That Phasetech autofocus in this phone seems rock solid despite the problems the S20 Ultra had. But yeah, overall here, if you look past the numbers, this is a solid camera that reminds me of many Huawei cameras in the past as far as color and high exposure and just the general shot style. Matter of fact, if any of the cameras here impressed me, it was actually the selfie camera with all the beauty modes turned off because it kept a ton of detail. That to me is a really good first impression. The battery in this phone is 4,200 milliamp hours. And if anything, it feels like a bigger battery trend is sort of a wave everyone's hopping on now. Everyone copying that is a good thing. But this one takes it a step further. P40 Pro has 40 watt wired charging and incredibly support for 40 watt fast wireless charging, which is awesome. For context, the $1,000 iPhone 11 Pro Max ships with an 18 watt wired fast charger. I don't even know if I have access to a wireless charger that cranks out 40 watts of power, but the second I can, I will try to get my hands on it. But until then, other manufacturers, yes, please copy that. And then the rest of the specs of this phone are pretty high end, if you were wondering. Not bleeding edge, but the Kirin 990, 8 gigs of RAM, 128 or 256 gigs of storage, IP68 water resistant, 5G enabled, and there are a bunch of other little things it does well. There's software EMUI 10.1. While it is better with every iteration, it's still nowhere near being able to recommend for this market. Yes, they do have Huawei's app gallery and a lot of other familiar features and UI tweaks like, oh, I don't know, swiping down from the home screen to bring up a search box and app suggestions, and a stock weather app that looks not just eerily close, but pretty obviously close to another certain weather app. And even a new voice assistant they're launching called Celia. And you can trigger it by saying, hey Celia, which I don't want to say they're copying anyone, but if you say it fast enough, hey Celia. So, you know, take what you wish. But really the software, if it was anything amazing or game-changing here, that would be the easiest to tell other manufacturers to copy because they copy software all the time. Seems like Huawei's just already ahead of the game in that department. So overall, my take is P40 Pro is a nice package, and it wouldn't be a bad upgrade for pretty much anyone with a 2 or 3-year-old phone. And while it is missing a couple of the absolute highest end bleeding edge stuff like 8K video or 120 hertz, there is a lot of good stuff in here for the rest of the industry to pick up on, and that's a win for all of us. All right, so to end it, big shout out to this video's sponsor, NordVPN. This one is specifically to help you expand your quarantine content library, because a VPN can let you see websites as if you're visiting from another country or a different region. So a lot of people don't know there's a different version of YouTube for the US and YouTube for UK and YouTube for India. So, pro tip, changing your region or your country with a VPN will not only unlock a whole bunch of YouTube videos that were previously blocked in your country, but will also basically unearth entire new libraries. Like, this is literally true for Netflix. So I didn't realize Doctor Who is only available on Netflix UK. But now that you know about NordVPN, you can watch it from anywhere. You're welcome. Plus all the other privacy and security benefits of a VPN that you've probably already heard me talk about. So if you want 70% off plus 1 additional month free, and why wouldn't you, you can use promo code MKBHD and get started with NordVPN today. So thanks again for NordVPN for sponsoring this video. Good luck with the rest of your hashtag quarantine content. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.